Who are KAJ?
The Swedish-Finnish boy band that won Melodifestivalen 2025 with a song about bathing in the sauna. The victory that brought Eurovision winner Måns Zelmerlöw to tears while earning a record of 4.3 million votes, the most amount of votes ever in Melodifestivalen history. But who are these three Finnish musketeers?
Where did they come from and how did they end up representing Sweden at the Eurovision? KAJ consists of three childhood best friends:
Kevin Holmström, Axel Åhman and Jakob Norgård. Similar to ABBA, every member's first letter is part of the band name. K stands for Kevin, A stands for Axel, J stands for Jakob.
As kids, they played on the same football team, never knowing that their paths would cross again in middle school.
But when they reunited as students, it was like no time had passed. Bonded by their love for music and comedy, they became the class clowns. Always cracking jokes, pushing boundaries and making sure their classmates have a good laugh. Being young rebels wasn't just a phase, it was who they were.
Living in a quiet small town like Vörå, you don't easily find new people to make friends with. So when you find good ones, you stick by them. And they did.
In 2009, when they were just 15 and 16 years old, their friends launched a YouTube channel called KAJ Filmer. Their vision was quite simple: post whatever they found funny, whether it was a random cooking video, goofy skits, or even their first ever song, Fisken Gunnar, a quirky tune about a fish leaving Finland for a better life, only to end up in Japan as sushi. They had a unique and edgy humor played on representing the Nordic culture but also embracing its stereotypes. There wasn't a large abundance of original Finnish creators online, so KAJ would set that stage quite early. 5 years later, in 2014, they would step it up and announce their first ever theater show. The plan was to have 3 shows in the smallest venue they could get a hold of and hopefully sell enough tickets to make it go around.
What they didn't expect was that after the announcement, the shows would be cancelled. It was actually because now they were going to do 24 sold out shows in the largest venue at the Vasa Theater. None of them could have believed these news.
The word had gotten out. KAJ was a sensation, delivering a spectacular performance that combined gospel music, cultural dance, witty humor, emotional acting, and much more. It was as if each band member completed each other's weaknesses, acting like yin and yang on stage, passing the ball to each other, and making the whole audience go wild at the same time.
That summer, KAJ would release their biggest hit yet. Yono e yo yolo yano.
It's quite a mouthful, but it means, well, I sure am YOLO I am. It's a song about a middle-aged man that wants to feel young and hip again.
This was still 2014, mind you, when people were playing Flappy Bird and using an iPhone 4S.
The song quickly gained popularity in Vörå and the rest of Swedish Finland. Swedish Finland is a region of Finland where Swedish is spoken, but with a distinct Finnish accent. This was KAJ's target audience. For the group, it was important to use their accent in their songs, setting themselves apart in a way others couldn't. By proudly embracing their heritage, the Swedish Finns adored the trio and felt they finally had someone to root for.
But even with this domestic success, the band was still busy with real-life jobs and family responsibilities.
Kevin worked as an audio engineer, Axel was an author and journalist, and it wasn't until 2018 where they could work KAJ full-time and depend on the band for a living.
Because this would be the year that KAJ would take it to the next level, announcing their first ever musical, Gambemark.
This musical era would continue with high success. In 2019, they would try a different project, releasing the album Born to Burn under another artist name, Virgins. At the same time, they would celebrate their 10-year anniversary since beginning on YouTube with a sold-out arena show. After the massive success of Gambemark, in 2021 they warmed up for the next musical, Botnia Paradise, which broke even bigger audience records and received critical acclaim.
This set the bar quite high, even for KAJ, and the coming years wouldn't be as high tempo as before.
Axel got quite busy with his own career as an author, releasing both children's books as Smugglaren Skatt and novels like Klein.
But it wasn't until 2024 the band had to find their footing again and make the next big move.
For a long time they had their eyes on the neighboring country in which they speak of the same tongue, Sweden. A dream of entering the Swedish market made sense, since their music was practically already in Swedish but with a Finnish strong accent. And an opportunity arose that would change the trajectory of KAJ's future. In May 2024, they would receive an email. Melodifestivalen's producer Karin Gunnarsson reached out and suggested that KAJ should submit an entry. Of course, they said yes! However, to participate in Melodifestivalen, at least one of the songwriters must be a Swedish citizen or registered in Sweden. The solution? They quickly settled on Anders Wrethov, a songwriter who, like KAJ, loves blending genres. Gunnarsson paired them up, and Wrethov then brought in Robert Skowronski and Kristoffer Strandberg for the project. KAJ had a clear reason for wanting to work with Wrethov. He was, after all, one of the creators behind Guld och gröna skogar, Hasse Andersson's big hit from Melodifestivalen 2015. It was a song that truly stuck in people's minds and showed how to combine folk music with a modern touch. Perfect for KAJ.
Once they decided to participate, the big question arose. What were they gonna sing about?
They felt representation was important and wanted to highlight their Finnish roots, much like what is done in UMK, Finland's equivalent of Melodifestivalen. UMK is known for being extremely creative and daring to be odd, which is why we've seen entries like Lordi's Hard Rock Hallelujah and KAJ's Cha 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 in Eurovision. They bring that flair of being a bit crazy. KAJ wanted to bring that energy to Sweden and Eurovision with a distinctly Finnish theme, the sauna.
So why the sauna?
The sauna is something the whole world associates with Finland. A tradition that has existed for over 2,000 years. Making a humorous song about the sauna felt like a genius idea, and they were surprised no one had done it before.
But Bara Bada Bastu actually has a longer history to it, dating back all the way to 2018.
Back in 2018, Axel wrote the novel Bastu Tronen, or in English, The Sauna Throne, where a young man steps into the hierarchy of the sauna without understanding the rules. Where the honor seat is reserved for the strong men who throw water on the rocks, while the lower bench is reserved for the weak, children, Swedes, and the elderly. The novel both mocked and celebrated Finland-Swedish traditions, and now it became the foundation for KAJ's Melodifestivalen entry. By the end of August, just a few weeks before Melodifestivalen's deadline on September 13, the song was ready. Bara Bada Bastu became an official entry and was selected by the jury. With the song, KAJ stepped into the spotlight of Melodifestivalen.
Although they had one big issue.
KAJ has always had a signature color, green. It was visible on album covers, clothing, and their entire aesthetic. But when KAJ dominated Eurovision with the same color in 2023, the guys realized it was time to switch things up, and instead opted for a darker, more elegant look. They would wear suits and trousers as a tribute to the work life and becoming older, or as they would call it, Karlar I arbet, which translates to men at work. KAJ participated in the 4th semi-final in Malmö. This semi-final would be decided by a public vote in 2 rounds. Bara Bada Bastu received the 2nd highest score and ultimately advanced to the final, after Måns Zelmerlöw secured his expected 1st place. But I don't think Måns was ready for KAJ to advance. I believe KAJ was underestimated, especially by the other participants. They weren't exactly well known in Sweden, and humor isn't exactly known to work in Melodifestivalen. So it was a total shock that they even made it through. Suddenly, everything became serious. Their hometown of Vero rallied behind them. Cars were decorated with stickers, and there was even talk of erecting a statue in their honor. Now, they couldn't let their roots down. Finland-Sweden had finally been heard and recognized. The song would garner buzz across Sweden. Towards the end of Melodifestivalen, the tide began to turn. It spread like wildfire and went viral even in countries like India and the Philippines. Bara Bada Bastu was suddenly streamed twice as much in Sweden as Måns' song Revolution, and the odds would skyrocket. A KAJ fever was about to break out right before the final, a total nightmare for Zelmerlöw. KAJ had become a cult favorite in Finland for over a decade, but now it was clear. If they went to Eurovision, they could go from regional heroes to international superstars. This was the moment when Vero would have its chance of being put on the world map. In the final week before the final, the odds of KAJ winning rose to 2nd place, and the media started a feud between Måns and KAJ. Måns as the obvious Melodifestivalen winner that comes with the polished pop song that's expected from Sweden, perfect for international radio and sung in English. And KAJ, the weird Finnish underdog that had the local people on their side, but also break the curse of Sweden only sending English songs to Eurovision and having something cultural and spoken in the Swedish language. It was obvious KAJ would win the public vote, but the chance of Måns winning was still number 1 because of the jury votes. Everyone expected that the international jury would take Måns' side. The final took place in Strawberry Arena the 8th of March, and the ground was shaking with excitement, both at the arena but also online, where debate was hotter than ever. For the first time in what felt like decades, Melodifestivalen was totally unpredictable. Would Måns win with the support of the international jury backing him as expected, or would the people's champions KAJ break through with the people's vote? It was tense. Måns ended up with the most points from the jury as expected, with 76. But he wasn't as happy as you'd imagine. You see, KAJ received 74, only 2 points less than Måns. And with the clear odds of KAJ receiving a record-breaking voting count from the public, it didn't bode well for the revolution he had in mind. The celebration was enormous, stretching from watch parties where people gathered to watch the final, to bars and even across countries. countries. Finland and Bara were filled with joy over the result, doing what they typically do every time they succeed or win something. Everyone heads to town to celebrate, but not everyone celebrated with tears of joy. Criticism against the win was massive, with Måns Zelmerlöw and John Lundvik leading the charge in this storm of emotions and harsh words in front of the press. A major debate erupted over whether KAJ were truly talented and real singers. A rather embarrassing argument to make, given their long history of singing, doing legit opera, like you can see KAJ's talent at its peak. They use proper vocal techniques to reach higher registers, singing in passaggio. It's not something everyone can do. Måns got a lot of flack for crying around the press and saying he's shocked that the jury gave them such high scores, implying that he felt the jury voted wrong. John Lundvik didn't say as nice things either. I mean, he was in a jittery mode laughing, but when asked by the press, he said that this is the new TikTok era and that's why humor is working and that he would never use humor in his music. And the Swedish audience wasn't so happy with these reactions because they were basically implying that KAJ were inferior because they were singing in Swedish, but also that it was humor. It wasn't a seriously polished radio song that could get 200 million streams on Spotify. And both artists got ridiculed, both in the community but also on the press for reacting like this. But Sweden is now currently at the top of the odds to win internationally. The guys have promised to break the norm of Eurovision songs from Sweden being in English. This is like the first one since 1998. And it's crazy that it took 3 Finns to make Sweden feel a little pride in their own language. From a small town in Finland to the Eurovision stage, KAJ's story is one of humor, talent and perseverance. They've proven that staying true to your roots always works out. You can take the boy out of the village, but you can't take the village out of the boy. This is what KAJ say at the end of their song Kom till byn. KAJ is breaking Sweden's reputation of being a predictable and overrated competitor in the contest, and instead becoming innovative, fun and cultural again. One thing that ties their lyrics together from the musical to the debut album and Bara Bada Bastu is that their lyrics are silly. I'm thinking especially of the track Taco Hey, where KAJ tries to make a Tex-Mex song about tacos with a Latin influenced beat. In the verses, the guys rap about how to make a great taco with avocados. This is their version of Netflix and chill, as they say in the song. It's genius how they can be humorous and over the top, yet serious in other songs. If there's a music genre out there, KAJ has made a banger in it. I wanna make more Eurovision content like this, and the only way I can afford to is by your free support by subscribing to the channel, supporting an independent music journalist here in Sweden.
And like the video if you learned anything new about KAJ.
And also one super interesting question I have. The odds of who wins 2025 is toppled right now by KAJ. But where do you see KAJ coming in Eurovision? At which final spot will they land? Comment that number and why you think so. Also, here's a picture of me and KAJ. I was actually at the label the same time they arrived, and this was weeks before they would win, and I literally told them like, guys, you're gonna fucking win, like let's take the victory pic. I'm gonna post it when you win. So, and at 10 PM I posted that picture on Instagram, so yeah, you can follow me there too. But turns out I was right, they were gonna win.
Hej då and kitos for watching.